Congratulations, Mary. Okay. Let's have a fireside chat. What do you think? So we're going to have Yujie Su, Head of Product Innovation at Maersk, and Maneesh Apte, CEO of Real Simple Labs. And Dr. Nick Vyas will moderate. So come on up and welcome them up.
Just come here, yeah. And then Maneesh. Okay, so we've been talking about the AI and the digital transformation, and this fireside chat is to further dive in to the AI, machine learning, and some of the digital technologies that we're on the frontiers of revolutionizing the supply chains for. So let's start with establishing the operational definition of AI. So Maneesh, I'll start with you. But before, why don't we just do a quick introduction? Maneesh, you want to just give us a quick background about yourself?
Sounds good. Hey, everyone. Can you hear me? Awesome. Hey, thanks so much for having me. My name's Maneesh. I'm CEO of Real Simple Labs. We're an AI-powered payments company that helps retailers grow and operate their businesses. And I'm an engineer by trade. So I studied AI, computer science at Stanford, worked in industry, building some of these search algorithms that are now very popular. So it's an honor to be here today on this panel. So you want me to go into the definition,
Yes.
Operational definition?
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. So just to kind of, I guess, ground the conversation, I feel like right now there's a lot of articles, a lot of new algorithms coming out, right? Obviously, ChatGPT, all the generative AI stuff, a lot of acronyms. I think the best way to describe the operational definition of what's going on. First off, AI is simply just computers solving a task for you, right? So it can be very basic. Literally, Microsoft Word could be considered to be AI, right? But what we're talking about in modern times is really about using AI to solve and predict problems, right? And solve these issues that we have in businesses. And so the first category I like to explain about AI is really what we call weak AI or narrow AI. This is algorithms where we know we have experts in the domain saying that these specific features, these specific data points are important for us to look at. We want to feed this into an algorithm, some kind of statistical model, and it'll output a score saying that this is important. And so a good example of this is, when you're going on Netflix, right? And it says, hey, I think this movie is a good one. I think you'll like it, right? That's a narrow AI, right? It's a discipline called collaborative filtering. Now, what's really interesting is that fast forward to pretty much 2017 onwards, we have the advent of deep learning models, which makes AI actually you don't have to be a domain expert to program the AI and say, hey, these features are important. You just give it a bunch of data, and the algorithm actually determines what is important with a few intermediary steps, and then actually can infer insight. And what we're seeing with ChatGPT is that things can actually, with that insight, it can actually generate very meaningful outputs that are very human-like. So,
well, that's brilliant. That sets the sort of the stage for the AI conversation as we're going to embark on it. Yujie, you're back. Just a quick introduction, and let's talk your views of in practical application of AI, operational definition. How must is it?
Yeah. Thanks for having me, everyone. Glad to be here. My name is Yujie Su. I'm heading up the product innovation in Maersk Innovation Center. I've been with the company for 10 years now and been into different roles in the logistics space. But the AI for us and for our team is obviously something very important when you talk about innovation. So for us in the supply chain domain and in a logistic company, the use of AI really is to solve complex problems and do the predictive and prescriptive analysis. I'll talk about the actual examples in a little bit, so you have a better understanding. But for now, I resonate very much with what you just said, Maneesh, the predictive and predictions of the future. That's something we work very much with in terms of AI and in the logistic company.
Yeah, so Yujie, let's start with you, since you walk us through. So when I talk about the supply chain, right? So we're looking at it from design to delivery. So if you look at the entire value chain, from the acquisition of raw materials, the manufacturing in the first mile, middle mile, last mile, give us a sense of, even though you being mostly from factory on in terms of the middle and the last mile service provider, how is AI being sort of thought about and implemented?
Yeah, I'll give you, there are many areas that we're using AI algorithm to help us solve complex problems, but I'll give you an example. Now we're talking about entire supply chain. So as you know, Maersk is a company that provide logistics services. For us, end-to-end logistics is very important for our customers, who are the majority of the shipper of this world. So for us, end-to-end means from the manufacturer factory all the way to customers' distribution center here in North America. Let's take a link. Let's, for example, take from Shanghai to Memphis, for example. For us, how we use AI to help our customer here is really on the transit time side of things. So if I ask you a question, Nick and Maneesh here, how long do you think it takes for a cargo to move from Port of Shanghai to a DC in Memphis?
Well, it depends on my friends at the ports, how quickly they can process your container. No, just kidding, just kidding. If all goes well, it's probably 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks max.
What do you think, Maneesh?
Yeah, I'd say on the order of a month. Yeah.
Yeah. You guys are on the range, but when we did analysis of thousands of shipments from Shanghai to Memphis, what we found out is that the transit time can be anywhere between a month all the way to 120 days. Depends on what the port is doing.
The ports are the bottlenecks for us, right? I completely understand.
So the problem here is very obvious. As a shipper, how do you plan your inventory if some of your cargo arrives in 30 days and the others are arriving only at 120 days? Obviously, the majority of them will arrive somewhere between, the curve looks like this, right? Somewhere between 45 to 60 days, let's say, your majority of cargo would arrive. Yeah. But you still have you still have a lot of cargo arriving on the 30 days and a lot of cargo arriving on the 120 days. How do you plan your inventory that way? You have to buy a lot of safety stock just to prevent if things don't go as planned. We all see in COVID times. So what we're using AI for that is that we're building an algorithm that takes the data from all our operating systems, cross over ocean, terminal, first mile, middle mile, and our warehousing. So we're able to learn the pattern of the past, years in the past, and we're able to learn the pattern in past few weeks as well. So give us a relatively accurate prediction of how you put these parts together, what will you end-to-end transit time be? And that helps our customer, because if we predict a specific route that our customer is taking is going to be 120 days in the next 3 weeks, we as your provider would able to route it differently in a different route where have less congestions, less problems, that we're able to give you a transit time instead of 120 days to back to the window where you desire. Usually it's between 45 to 60 days. And that you cannot do with human. That's something the algorithm will be able to help you to predict, because if as our operation people, they wouldn't know, right? They'll give you an answer between 30 to 100 days. What you going to do with it?
Oh, that's a good point. So let's go to conversation and zoom out of the supply chain world. So Maneesh, you mentioned that your Stanford study was focused on AI. This is what, about 8-10 years ago, probably. AI wasn't popular. So why AI, and what was the reasoning behind engineering focusing on the AI? Because I'm just thinking of this buzz about the AI. I mean, it goes back to 80s, but so to walk us through the landscape of education and what was the principal reasons why this discipline is actually, and what's the potential in the future?
That's a great question. I think so there's an interesting fact about AI and all these algorithms that are becoming very popular and very powerful, which is that they've existed since the 80s and the 90s. There are a bunch of really smart mathematicians and statisticians that came up with these deep learning algorithms, and they said, hey, theoretically, this should work, but we don't have the compute to actually try it out at scale. It's issues with memory. Essentially, the computer, right? You have like your RAM and everything around your computer. If you can't hold all the data in the memory for the number of parameters, then you can't actually have the computer understand what's going on, right? And so there were literal hardware limitations until 2013. This is when Google published this really big paper in the machine learning and the AI world called AlexNet. And they essentially, this was you know how back in 2013 to 2017, there was this whole craze of self-driving cars, still obviously very popular, right? But it was about image processing, right? And specifically, the algorithm is called CNN, neural networks. And you might have heard some of these buzzwords, but essentially what happened is that from 2013 onwards, with the advent of cloud computing and also hardware costs with and capabilities with GPUs essentially becoming more and more popular and more accessible via cloud computing, you see the rise of us being able to actually try out some of these models like deep learning, and we realized that they were pretty good. And so I think 2017 was a huge inflection point for the space in AI, because you had companies actually productionizing these algorithms. And that's when I joined industry. It was a pretty exciting time. A lot of these startup Silicon Valley folks, making a lot of money and adding a lot of value, becoming billion-dollar kind of outcomes because of the value that they could provide. And now fast forward to today's, AI craze, it's really around the generation, right? Because it was first understanding, and then it's about actual generating content based on the understanding that the algorithm has. So no longer, like when we're talking about data sets that you're trying to gain insights from, you don't have to have an industry expert necessarily guiding you through and creating specific rules saying, hey, this feature is really important. I need to, weigh that in my algorithm. Now you can actually have the algorithm train itself and actually understand on its own what's going on. And that's a whole discipline of itself, the AI research and everything, but that's what led to things like ChatGPT, and pretty powerful.
Oh, that's fascinating. So what this conversation always comes up is AI. And I'm using AI in terms of the compounding of all the technology, deep learning, machine learning, even the distributed ledger, blockchain. So think about those as emerging forces. In our lifetime, at least in my lifetime, you think that these models will actually self-learn and actually be somewhat equivalent, if not better insights than humans?
Yeah, I think humans will not be replaced, but I think there will just be more things we can do having smarter computers at our side, essentially helping us solve problems. And the idea of the computers reasoning with each other is really interesting. With generative models, you can have the model essentially give example data and then change the data ever so slightly, and then refeed the data into the model to train itself again. But you still need a human to kind of intervene and make sure you don't converge on what they call local maxima and minima, right? Because if it starts training on itself, then it can get pretty crazy and over-optimize, essentially, right? So I still think there's a role for humans, but yeah, the world will be interesting for sure as in the next few years.
So Yujie, it looks like that you will have a job.
Thank you.
So let's see. So how do you continue to innovate with that framework in mind that these models can self-learn and self-teach? I always have this paradox. Do we need as many people in a routing department, in a traffic department, in front-end bookings and other things that we currently do? I mean, do you see, in a practical sense, I would just imagine that self-optimizing and machines' ability to actually ingest and digest the data. I think a lot of things that are today done by humans in a repetitious way can be eliminated, or will be eliminated. Am I wrong in that assessment?
Something you're wrong at, but at the same time, I'm not concerned that human will be replaced. I'm not concerned at all. What I do think is that it will create better jobs for human. We already see that today. Our routing department or any other things that our colleagues do today are not necessarily they are passionate about, right? If you go to work, you have to sit there looking at 15 different Excels and figure out what is I'm going to promise customer today, the transit time. I don't know, I should have promised 45 days or 50 days because this is very manual work and I'm not entirely sure if I make a mistake or not. And I need to double check with my second colleague, my third colleague, if we're confident to give customer a promise today that your cargo will arrive in Memphis in 45 days. What if it's not? I don't have that confidence today. But if I can use, or the machine learning, the algorithm can be accurate enough and we have confidence enough for that task to be done by the machine, then human could be free up their time to do much better things and much more interesting things.
Very good. By the way, we will take the questions, so make sure you, any questions that you guys have, just keep that in mind, and I'll get to most of those questions in a few minutes. But let's get into it, because I think many of in this audience probably has this concern, if not the question, about how far this technologies that we're thinking about it, and I talked about it in my opening speech, the autonomous world in which all of these things converge as a force, and then I introduce the robotics on top. So if we look at it from those convergence of some amazing opportunities, where does that take us, Maneesh?
Yeah, I don't think this is zero sum. I think that's probably the best way, or the way I think about it. I think it's all positive sum. I think when you have tools that you can use within an organization to become more efficient and glean more insights, then your business value actually goes up, right? And you can actually do more business as a result. I don't think there's going to be an elimination of, departments of people. Now the roles might change, right? I mean, like if you look historically, right? I think decades ago, there were mathematicians that were literally just calculators, right? Doing complex calculations for whatever routing and shipping, all kinds of stuff. Now we can just plug it into an Excel spreadsheet. So this is kind of the next evolution of that. I think we're going to be able to do a lot more is the exciting part, right? And so once you're more precise with the outputs, right, new challenges will arise that I think organizations can start to tackle, and it becomes very exciting.
Yeah, so traditionally, the Maneesh, I know your focus is on the fintech side using AI. So just to give some insight to that, but understand the supply chain industry is notorious about adopting change and filled with frictions, right? And we seldom trust upstream collaborators and the downstream customers. So data sharing has always been one of the biggest hurdle in this industries, right? And the blockchain is the absolute example that I can do. In 2016, I published the book Blockchain in Supply Chain. TradeLens, Musk and IBM partnership went belly up. Strictly scaled up, reached the inflection point, came down and crashed. Right? Port examples, we just saw the port of LA and Long Beach, now creating one booking system, but interportability of data across the infrastructure is still a big challenge for us. How do you compare fintech progressing through that, and what lessons supply chain industry leaders can learn from it?
Yeah, that's a great question. In terms of data transparency and shareability, I actually think AI algorithms will be able to solve that problem as well. I think a lot of cases is where two different organizations have different systems that can't talk to each other, or even within an organization, right? You have systems that don't talk to each other. I actually worked at a company called ThoughtSpot, which we solved this problem, or we're working on it back in the day. And the idea is that when you are able to use AI to map the different columns in your table, because the algorithms have understanding on what your organization business objectives are, you're doing essentially with an algorithm what you would have had probably hired like 10 people manually to go and map data across. And I think that's something that the industry will benefit from in terms of adoption. Now, in terms of the pace of adoption and comparing supply chain to fintech, the industry I'm in, I think it's all about showing business value, I think that's the biggest thing, and getting the right people involved to evangelize, right, the solutions to make sure that we're adopting solutions that are going to actually add value, not only for within the organization, but the customers you serve. So
Yujie, tell us about the business value. How do you approach that in Musk world?
Yeah, right. It's a good question. First of all, I want to just add on top what you said. Data is really a big issue, data shareability and data, the format of it. So for us, the algorithm I was talking about needs a lot of data to train it in order to be able to predict. And just for ourselves, our data quality and our in one company, the systems that don't talk to each other and the data just the same set of data, they can have so many different formats. That's already create a big problem for them. So I just want to recognize that it's really a big challenge for that. So for us, how to recognize the value really is as a corporate, we see it as the return of investment. A lot of these things, you would not only need to put people into that, you need to invest the actual CapEx into that solution as well. And that's actually the reason why we created MERS Innovation Center, because we want to have a department that's close enough to business, that have an understanding of the business, but at the same time have the full capacity of looking at what's out there in the industry, in the tech space that we could utilize in our organization, then create value. And we can look at the value together with our business units to identify if it's of high value or low value to my specific business.
Very good. So you think the culture of innovation has to be ingrained in a company's DNA?
It's super important.
It's
super
very
important. I can tell you that the innovation centers, another very important aim, other than creating these technologies, implication in our business is to create a design thinking and innovation culture on the enterprise level. To adopt the changes are super difficult if you don't have supporters from the business area, from the leaderships that supports you, say, go ahead and try this out. Because a lot of these things are there. They're doing the same, people doing the same things in supply chain for many, many years. And now that a couple of young people come in telling you, no, you should do things this way, imagine how people would react, right? So a design thinking and innovative culture is very, very important to adopt or apply any sort of innovation, including AI, in a big organization like ours.
Very good. Okay, let's go around, and I think we have somebody with the microphone to take the questions. I see some hands in the back. Can I get Jean or somebody to the microphone? Okay, right there. Okay.
Hi, everyone.
If you can identify yourself and then please.
Sure. Hi, thank you so much for the panel or the fireside chat. I think that's fantastic. My name is Michelle Lampa. I come from Pascal. We're a quantum computing company. So basically, when you're talking about essentially even like the hardware constraints for classical hardware, we're basically the next generation that offsets some of the optimization problems for certain complex data sets and the algorithms that are used. That being said, I know that when we think about even move to EV or even, more optimization for routes and predictability or predictions for complex data sets like what you are dealing with, a lot of the companies that are in this room may have trouble in justifying the ROI as well as also justifying, the investment into offsetting tech debt that they may accrue while all this new innovation is happening. Are there any types of even governmental incentives or programs that you have seen that companies that aren't as big can basically take advantage of to work with other data science or even AI companies or even quantum companies in order to better enable their technologies, offsetting the R&D costs that are associated with that?
Well, I'll let Maneesh and then Yujie, you want to chime to Maneesh, why don't you start?
yeah, that's a great question. What I found as a startup founder is that if you work directly with some of the cloud computing folks, and I'm not sure how Pascal fits into the stack, but a lot of times the like AWS, GCP, Azure, they all have these AI specific programs that if you join, then they give you, say, $1 million of credits, right? And I think that's a really like that is tried and true. There are programs out there that do that. At a government level, I don't know if there's as much things are moving fast, right? So I don't know if there's any programs right now, unless you.
I
guys know.
will touch on that,
Yeah.
but Yujie, why don't you?
Just to add one thing, from a governmental support perspective, we have been involved with some research programs with the government as well as universities. If you're tackling a specific problem using a specific technology, in this case AI is included, you get some sort of funding from there as well, but you have to tackle a problem that government is specifically having that fund for. I can tell you more after this in a offline, but there is a few that we have been involved with as an innovation center.
And just to shed some light, I mean, I know about a half a dozen various government organizations. I'm talking about US, that they have Department of Defense, NSI, they all have certain research grant that actually focuses in this space. So if you qualify in some protocols of your research on the deep learning, machine learning, and AI kind of an applications in various aspects, I think there are funds available. All right, next question. Okay, right here.
Hello, this question is for our Real Simple Labs. It looks like you're a lot of merchant payment solutions. Brittany Peterson with Bank of America. Hi, everyone. Of course, the question goes down to the merchant servicing. Have you sat down and talked with businesses about some of their API solutions and talked about maybe some ways that you can integrate with certain software? I did check out the website and it included some information about, working with current software. Have you sat down with business owners and merchants to find out, some of those solutions? Because it looks like you're an alternative to credit card payments, and talk about how you work to integrate that with the bank systems.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate the question. Yeah. I gave a quick overview of my company, but I can give a little bit more color on it. So essentially what we've built is a payment platform that uses bank rails to facilitate payments, consumer payments specifically for retailers. And the insight there is that we want to help you guys save on fees and help you redirect the savings into loyalty to drive actual top line. And we have a whole AI algorithm on the back end for loyalty to control the rewards, right? And so that's where the AI component comes into play. In terms of your question was around the integrations you said with the softwares. Yeah, we've integrated with businesses. We have a partnership with Shopify right now too. So that helps us kind of get into that payment stack in terms of e-commerce. And a lot of the stuff that we were talking about using AI algorithms to actually help with certain integrations, API integrations, that might be a little unstructured, is also at play as well. So yeah, I would happy to chat with you as well more afterwards, if you'd like on that. Yeah, thank you.
So you basically, you talked about on the e-commerce side, that this is about building the loyalty and creating, so it's not almost like you're going against the traditional credit card services.
No, I'd say it's complementary. I mean, I think ultimately we want to create a payment method that consumers want to use that's also benefiting businesses, right? And
Okay.
so, yeah.
Well put, okay. The last question to you guys, and then we're gonna wrap this, but we'll start with you, Yujie. What can audience take away the learnings in terms of self-learning for their own personal growth and for their organization? What they should do to adapt this new reality that we're gonna be facing?
Yeah, that's a great question, Nick. I would say, first of all, that AI is not only a buzzword, it's something actually happening in every organization. Also in a supply chain or in logistics space, a lot of things doesn't seem to be as advanced as we want to be, but there are a lot of work behind the curtains that trying to achieve the future that we all want, which is a more resilient supply chain. And our company, as an integrated logistic provider, we're in the front runner of testing all the technologies that's available to us, including AI, to get us there. So if anything, I want audience to take back with is that it's not just a buzzword. It's not just a buzzword. It's something really happening.
Very good. Maneesh?
Yeah, I would say just closing thoughts is internally within your organizations, if you can set metrics and set goals to experiment and enable your teams to use some of the latest tools and try to solve problems, even internally, to make your businesses more efficient, it can be a great source of joy, honestly, for teams. That's what I've found with my teammates. I run a very lean team, and we're doing the output of like 2 or 3x of what, prior what worked in different organizations, simply just because we're built on a completely new AI driven powered stack. So would highly recommend that.
Well, fantastic. So my closing remark before I thank my panelist here is my point earlier was the lifelong learnings. All of these things are exciting if we're open for possibilities and opportunities, right? So think of this landscape is a new frontier, right? And this frontiers has so much potential, so much opportunities, and we individually and collectively have to find ways to not only embrace but adapt to those reality and be graceful about going about your journey. So with that, Maneesh, Yujie, thank you so very much. Let's give a big round of applause to our panelists.
Thank you so much, Yujie, Maneesh. So I want to bring back up Alexandria Collis.